Alright, so we're going to be taking a look at a very specialized type of map. This is called the Aeronautical Chart, and this is the TAC chart of the Denver area, and it's basically just a beautified version of the Denver airspace for readability, and this is mainly for VFR flyers. What is it? What is VFR flyer? Well, visual flight rules. You're basically using your own two eyeballs to fly wherever you want. It doesn't have to be under ATC control or anything like that. You just need to follow the airspace rules, right? And don't bust any. So we're gonna take a look at Denver International. What is this like blue outline of the, it kind of looks like an upside down wedding cake. This is called the Bravo airspace, and basically Denver International, it's very busy. There is just airspace that Denver approach needs to control. So, the airliners aren't clashing with, the small propeller airplanes and other traffic. This is why this separation exists. So basically, right, if we trace out the boundary, right, 12,000 feet, this from the surface to 12,000 feet, right, that's under Denver control. So you cannot be flying in this unless you have specific clearance from air traffic control to be operating in that airspace, which is rare as a VFR aircraft. All right, if you're like a Southwest flight and going into here, you already have clearance to be operating in busy airspace like this. So, and as a VFR flyer, well, you need to know just essential airport information. So what does this provide? Automatic terminal information services, I believe, or I forgot. But this basically just provides the weather. This provides basically what airport runways are used for takeoff and landings. So I just took an example of spaceport right here. It's literally right next door to Denver International. So you have that information right here. Oh, you need to know the control tower frequency so you can get clearance to land and stuff like that. Well, here's the frequency for that. And also here's the airport elevation right there. So 5,515 feet. You also get like which runways are usually being used. Runway 8, so that's 080 heading, so magnetic, right? And runway 35, that is basically right there going to the north. And the runways, the numbers are based off of the magnetic heading. So that's what we have. Another important information that we should know as pilots is ground-based navigation. So here we go. We have the Falcon VOR, and it's basically just a ground-based navigation system. There's 360 laser beams or radio signals, and if your aircraft has it, you can track one of those laser beams into the VOR for your navigational purposes, right? And it helps with situational awareness. Here's the frequency right here, clearly outlined in this nice box right here. So we immediately know, hey, this is a VOR. Here's the compass rose. This has to be a navigational source. All right, and that is basically the low-level TAC chart for Denver International. It is effective. Sectional charts are essential for essential information about an area, such as weather information via radio frequencies, common traffic radio frequencies of airports, and ground-based navigation, and a lot more. How would I improve this? I would improve this by having more major landmarks at airspace boundaries to improve situational awareness. All right, so here's another map, in quotes, and this is the low en route altitude chart for the Denver area. So if you were flying under IFR conditions, so that means bad weather, you're going to be following one of these invisible airways in the skies. And basically, in the old days, you would be following it through, tracking a VOR. So this is the VOR that I explained like a minute ago. So let's say you wanted to go, you would be tracking 255 outbound on this Victor airway. And notice that we have to be at a certain altitude for that. So that's 14,000 feet on this airway if we're going 225 southwest bound, right? And typically this is done under ATC control. Pilots usually flying on these airways usually require a flight plan to be filed and communication with ATC, because if you don't talk to ATC and you're not, following your airways and stuff, you're gonna be going into mountains. And notice the minimum in-route altitude if you're flying on this airway is 16,500. If you go off this airway, you need to have a minimum altitude of 16,600. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, we have Mount Evans right here, and you, as a small airplane or passenger airplane, you don't want to be, going that low and risking the lives of you and the passengers, right? So that's why it's so important. This map is meant for a certain type of flying, and that's under bad weather conditions and just usual preventing ATC air traffic, congestion, because you're following predetermined set of waypoints, to get to your destination. And that's basically what this map or chart provides. I would improve the map by having minimal terrain outlines for a sense of orientation. This is a low altitude chart map after all, so having minimal terrain shadings would be nice and helpful for flight planning purposes. It is effective and it's simplified enough. The information about the radio navigation aid, you have like the frequency, the name, and even the Morse code identifier and all this other stuff, and it's really handy. So these two maps are very similar, right? They're based off the same location for across the world. It just provides pilots navigational information. You go to the TAC chart, you get general airport information and like terrain information. These are very different purposes. There isn't a map that solves all issues. Us pilots and navigators, we have to use our resources, and these are just different resources that we use. So thanks, maps.